Today is the seventh day, which is kind of the anniversary of creation, right? And if you read Genesis 1, in the creation story, God creates all kinds of things. I think on the fifth day, He creates sea creatures and birds. And then on the sixth day, He creates the land animals, including human beings. And then He rests, and then next day is the Sabbath. That's why we celebrate the Sabbath, partly in memory of that. The interesting thing about that story is that it says that God created man in His image, right? Male and female, He created them. And the word image there is the same word that you find in the Ten Commandments. In the commandment where it says, don't make any graven images of anything in the sea, the sky, and all that. So the problem with that is that God doesn't want people to create images of God and pray about them and worship them, right? Idols. But God Himself has created an image of God. Yeah, and that is the human beings, male and female. It says so in Genesis, the same word, image. Then you think to yourself, who is this image for? What's the purpose of the image? The image is meant to represent God. I don't think it means that God necessarily physically looks like us. He may not have 5 fingers. We do not know. We can see God. Very few people who can't see God and live. But I think we believe that He created man in His image in the sense that we're meant to reflect His character, right? That's how we interpret that. When it says God created man in His image, we're meant to reflect His character. We're meant to show other living things, other sentient beings what God is like. And so you think to yourself, who on earth was there to see this image of God and to learn from it at that time? And in the story, He's just created all the animals, and then He tells human beings, okay, now you go and rule over the animals, rule over the earth, put you in charge of them. So my interpretation of it is that God created man, human beings, to be an image of God, at least partly to show what the other animals, what God is like. Okay, so we're meant to rule over them. And the Bible uses a lot of metaphors. It says God is a king, God is a father. And I was thinking about it, we can only take a metaphor so far, right? Because yes, God is a king in some senses, because He's got authority, He rules and all that. But if you look at human kings, they don't really reflect what God is like. And it also says God is a father. And yes, God is like a father in some respects, in the sense that fathers are meant to look after their children and so on. But there are also fathers who are irresponsible, there are fathers who abuse their children. So human beings don't, at least certainly now, don't perfectly represent what God is like. Look at kings. Even in the Bible, the majority of the kings were bad kings. All wicked kings who led people away from God and abused their power and did all kinds of injustices and all that. So there were very few good kings in the Bible, or relatively good kings. And even the good kings had their flaws. You read about David and Solomon and the things that they did. So when you hear all these metaphors, God is a king, God is a father, God is this, God is that. It's like that in some ways, but not in all ways. So coming back to this image of God thing, I think perhaps God intended for us to show the animals what God is like. Some people have interpreted the part in Genesis where it says, go and rule over the birds of the air and the fish of the sea and everything, in the sense that we can use animals for our own benefit, we can eat them and all that. But then does that reflect what God is like? How does God treat us? What kind of image does God want the animals to have of Him, of His character? You read in the Psalms, I forgot which psalm it is, maybe one of you can remind me. There's a psalm that talks about God looking after creation, right? And then He feeds all the animals and the lions, and when He's kind to them, they are happy, and He hides His face, they're sad and hungry and all that. So there's this image of God providing not just for human beings, but for all creation. He's the one that looks after. He didn't just create creation, He looks after it as well. He sustains it. So in Genesis chapter 2, the story of the fall, but at the first part of Genesis chapter 2, it also talks again about the creation of humans in a bit more detail. And there it says that God actually made a garden, and He placed them in a garden to serve it and protect it, to look after it. So humans are meant to have this kind of caretaker role in the Garden of Eden. And I guess they're meant to look after it not just for themselves, but also to reflect what God is like to other sentient beings, maybe angels, maybe the animals. So if you remember that, it maybe informs our attitudes towards the animals. And again, there's the story of the fall, and then after that you have animal sacrifices, people having to wear skins. Skins come from killing animals to take their skin. And then after Noah's flood, there's a sacrifice, and then God tells man, I've given you all the animals as your food, just like I gave you all the green plants, now you can go and eat all the animals. So it wasn't like that from the beginning. That's why we just had a potluck, and the potluck was vegetarian, because we believe that in Genesis, when God created all the animals and all the people, He gave them plants as food. And if you read Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, he looks forward to the Messianic age of the Messiah to come, and the new heavens and the new earth. And his descriptions of the new heavens and the new earth include things like, the child will play near the hole of the cobra, put his hand inside the hole and not get bitten by the snake, and the lion will lie down with the lamb, and the child will play, and the young cow or something will play with them. So all the animals will be vegetarian. The lion will eat straw like an ox, and the serpent does something to the serpent's food. So you look forward, Isaiah looking forward to the new heavens and the new earth also, it's almost as though it's a picture of the Garden of Eden, the paradise restored, where once again, all the animals will be vegetarian. Human beings, it doesn't say in Isaiah, but presumably humans will also be vegetarian. So that's the ideal, and that's why I think as Adventists, you ask Adventists why they promote vegetarianism. Usually the answer is health, right? It's good for health and all that. But you actually read Ellen White. Yes, it's true, Ellen White does say that a vegetarian diet is better than health, but she also brings up animal welfare as well, where she talks about how animals often suffer a lot in the process of them being used as food. And so this is something that we sometimes forget as Adventists, that it's not only for health, it's also for the welfare of the animals that we should be vegetarian. I don't think we should place too much emphasis on it, because after all, Jesus wasn't vegetarian. Even after he was resurrected, he said, give me a piece of some food. They gave him some fish and he ate it to prove that he was real. And also, the miracle of the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, or was it the 4 loaves? That story? He didn't give them vegetarian fish, he gave them fish to eat. So Jesus wasn't vegetarian. In fact, in this day and age, you couldn't be an Israelite or a Jew and be a vegetarian, because you had to at least eat a Passover lamb once a year at Passover. But as Christians, it's possible to be vegetarian because we don't have to eat the Passover lamb, because Jesus is the Passover lamb. And he replaced the Passover with a vegetarian version of the Passover. That's why we have, instead of eating the lamb, we eat bread and we drink wine that represents his flesh and his blood. So he's made it possible for us to be part of his religion and also to be vegetarian, although I don't think it's compulsory because he wasn't vegetarian. Anyway, this is just some kind of theological thoughts about the background of animals and animal welfare. And I think also, how many of you, by the show of hands, how many of you have got pets at home? Some of you have pets. What kind of pet do you have? Fish, is it? So can you tell when your fish wants to be fed?
No, they're always putting their mouths. False.
Anyway, if you have pets, even but what I was trying to say is that if any of you have ever kept pets, then you will know that they have feelings. They'll make it known to you when they want to be fed, or when they're happy to see you, or when they're not happy to see you. So you can tell that they have feelings. So at ACRES, our starting point is the idea that animals have feelings, just like us. We are also animals, so we can identify. We have senses, we have eyes, we can see, we have ears, we can hear. If you pinch us, we feel pain. Animals also have senses, they have a nervous system, so they also can feel. Okay, in terms of cognitive ability, in terms of intellect and all that, they're not the same as us, obviously. There are differences between us and other animals. Differences in senses. For example, our sense of smell is not as good as that of a dog. Okay, our sense of sight is not as good as that of an eagle. But maybe we're better at thinking, better at talking. We can speak different languages, and also we're different from animals in certain ways. But at the same time, we're not that different because we're still mammals. We still have a nervous system, so we can kind of understand to some extent how animals feel. When we look at how animals behave, we can also guess from their behavior that they have feelings. And at ACRES, we argue that because they have feelings, okay, even if they're not as clever as us, because they have feelings, we should be kind to them. We should try to treat them in ways that don't make them suffer, that make them have good feelings instead of bad feelings, because we are made in the image of God, and God is a good God. God is a God of love. God is not a God who likes to make people suffer. No, God looks after us, He gives us food, He feeds us, He clothes us. He tries to make our life enjoyable and happy. So we should show the animals that God is like this. So in the way that we treat them, we should also show them that God is a good God. We are His ambassadors to the animal kingdom, representing God to the animals. So that's the way I look at it as an Adventist working at Acres. So maybe I'll just play you this kind of promotional video that was made for us about our rescue team. Okay, so at Acres we have different areas of work. One area of work is rescuing wild animals. We don't rescue domestic animals like dogs and cats because there are other people who are already doing that, like SPCA, even NParks. So we concentrate on wild animals because we have limited resources. So this is some interviews with some of our rescue staff, and you can get a view of some of the rescue work that Acres does.
Many times people are upset if you don't get them in time. But there is only so many of us, and there is so much we can do.
Besides the full-time staff, we also have volunteers as well. And so every year we rescue 3,000 to 4,000 animals.
So Singapore has a huge biodiversity, and our 24/7 wildlife rescue hotline attends to close to 1,200 calls a month now. We also rescue and rehabilitate close to 400 animals a month.
We try to rescue as many animals as we can, because we like to help treat it and then put it back into the farm.
As humans, whenever we get unwell, we have numerous contacts, we have numerous emergency, we have numerous outlets, whereas wildlife only has one.
That is our hotline. It's good to store it in your phone.
Hello, Acres.
So you can call us if you ever see a wild animal that needs help.
You realize that you made a step towards that animal being alive, because we do not want to call any animal. We want to do the best that we can to keep the animal alive, and rehabilitate them.
Animals who are injured or in distress, when we rescue them, they get a chance to be treated as well, and they get to be released back into the wild again.
I have a very clear memory when I was still volunteering, this was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I was flooded with calls, very overwhelmed, and back-to-back calls came in. One was for a mass poisoning of pigeons, and it was the first time I'd ever seen pictures of 20 or so pigeons just laying on the ground, either dead or flopping around, just totally helpless. So that was like a punch to my chest. And right on top of that, someone sent to me a picture of a baby otter coughing blood out of its mouth. And that one just, there was a kick in the stomach.
There are times when some of them don't survive. It's hard and emotional, but I tell myself, I did my best under the circumstances. There was this one instance where I received a call. This caller told me that there is a paradise reef snake. So she was scared and she asked us to help. When we arrived at that location, the snake was actually already been pot boiling water. And I realized that things like this happen because of the lack of knowledge.
You don't have to like them, but maybe just respect them as a fellow living being who also thinks and feel like you.
Especially,
We get a lot in rescues that people expect a lot of things from us. At the end of the day, remember that everything is for the animals.
No matter how much we can, each rescue is unique and has its challenges. There is always a risk of injury to me or the animal. Okay, that's done. An injured snake, for example, is already in pain and distress, so we never know how to react. The brings back into the wild is something.
It's tiring, risky, emotional, meaningful work. I sleep well at night, knowing I have done something good.
I feel content knowing I saved another life. And that's what keeps me going.
So that is about our rescue work. Maybe now I'll give you a little bit of background about ACRES and maybe talk to you a bit about, just give me a second, I think the YouTube's talk to you a bit about things that we can do to reduce cruelty to animals. So this slides I usually use when so my work at ACRES is to be an education executive. So I go to educational institutions and give talks. Also sometimes when schools have excursions to ACRES, I run a program for them, show the kids around. So I deal with all age groups. This is slides I actually used at a School of the Arts presentation I did some weeks ago. Okay, these are some examples of animal welfare issues. These are examples of showing interactions between people and animals. On the left, you have this community cat, who's part of the neighborhood, and people like to see the cat around, and they're very attached to the cat. And when the cat was killed, they made a kind of a memorial to the cat. If you want to, you can scan the QR codes to go to those news articles to read more. On the other side, there's a case of this person who abused cats and killed them cruelly for, you don't know why, he's probably got some emotional or mental issues or something, but these are examples of how people relate to animals. Some people are kind to animals, they like animals, and other people can be cruel to animals. And again, let's think, what would Jesus do? Or what would God want us to do? How would He want us to treat other living beings that He has created that have feelings? Would He want us to be kind to them, or would He want us to be cruel to them? What and how are we reflecting the character of God, the image of God to our fellow sentient beings on this planet? Okay, a bit of history. ACRES was founded by Louis Ng, the guy in the circle. He's now a member of parliament for Nisun East, part of Yishun GRC, I think, for the People's Action Party. But he wasn't always in politics. So now he no longer works at ACRES, he's no longer part of the organization, but he was the one who started it. He used to be a zookeeper at a zoo, and part of his job was to look after the chimpanzees. And one of the activities they had there was to this photography with the chimpanzee, where the tourists can pay some money and take a photo with the chimp, as you can see over there. So they used a baby chimpanzee for this activity, whose name was Ramba. Okay, so she was separated from her mother and used for this tourist photo opportunities, but she didn't like it. So again, remember, animals have feelings. Okay, let's try and do some empathy. Imagine you are a small child, and then some big strangers come and kidnap you from your mother, your parents, and then they make you sit on the lap of some big monsters. How do you feel as a small child? How do you think you would feel? Terrified. Okay, you would feel terrified, and it's normal to be terrified in such situations. And she was terrified. This when she's terrified, she would scramble, try to get away from them. She might lose her bladder control and pee on the tourists. And when she did stuff like that, Ramba would get a punch in the face, to train her, punish her for being naughty, and train her to be better behave next time. So one day she got a punch in the face. She ran to Louis and climbed up him and did that. Show him that her leg was bleeding because she got hurt. So Louis felt very bad for her. This is not how you should treat an animal. So he went to complain to the zoo authorities. Because of that, they fired him. But he kept at it. He's a very stubborn guy. He kept complaining about it. Eventually, they stopped using Ramba for that, and they put her back with her mother, whose name was Susie. I think Susie died a few months ago. So when they put her back with her mother, immediately they hug each other, they started grooming each other, which is a sign of affection, a sign of attachment. So they were happy together for a while, but when Ramba was 6 years old, she escaped from the zoo. Probably she wasn't very happy there. And while they were trying to recapture her, she climbed up a tree beside the Seletar Reservoir, they darted her with a tranquilizer dart. She fell into the reservoir and drowned. So it's a bittersweet ending. So that's one experience that Louis had. Another experience was this monkey. This is a vervet monkey from Africa. So it's not a local monkey. It was smuggled into Singapore and kept as a pet in a cage. By this time, it was illegal for people in Singapore to keep wild animals as pets. You need a license from NParks if you want to do anything like that. So this is an illegal pet. So the monkey was confiscated. And anyway, you look at the monkey in a cage, right? Again, how would we feel living in a cage? Imagine living in a cage your whole life. Well, monkeys are very intelligent animals, they're very social animals. If that was me, I would feel very bored, I would feel very lonely. They had no family, no friends, nothing to do, just in a cage all day. So the monkey was nicknamed Blue because it was very sad. So the Blue was removed from this situation, was confiscated when the authorities found out. But the problem was then what to do with Blue. The zoo didn't really want him, and NParks also didn't want him, or ABS at that time. So the decision was made to put him to sleep, put him down. But again, Louis felt this is not right. We're not really helping the animal. We rescue from this situation, then we kill it. So he persuaded them not to do that, and he actually looked after the monkey himself. Watch out the wire. He looked after the monkey at his own house until he could raise enough money to send the monkey back to Africa, where it came from. Okay, so Blue was repatriated to the Muda Wanga Sanctuary in Zambia, the same place, where he lived happily ever after. He found a female monkey and they had some children, but passed away in the wild. Okay, so that was a successful rescue and repatriation. So Louis decided to set up an organization to help animals like that, and so he raised some funds and he started ACRES. Who's our founder? Let's see, what is this? This is another video that shows some of the other areas of work that ACRES does besides rescue. So just now you saw a video on rescue, but we do more than that.
Hear them or understand because we don't speak the same language, and that is why it's important to speak up for these animals who are voiceless. And every one of us can play a role or affect the lives of the animals in a positive or negative way. Most of the conflict situations with animals in our community starts with not being aware and thinking of humane alternatives to resolve the situation. Due to fear, many people also hurt these animals. We have come across snakes who have been beaten to death, stoned to death. Sometimes people even torch a snake to death purely because they are not aware and they are fearful that the snake is out there to harm them. We really hope that this can be stopped through education and educated rescues.
My name is Lucy and I'm a wildlife rescue officer. So whenever someone encounters a wild animal in distress, they would call the hotline. We would answer and assess the situation first. So we will see is there a need for assistance. If the assistance can be provided by the phone, then we provide advices. But if we need to go down, then we will take the van and go down to help the person. Whenever we go down for a snake, for example, people will be quite scared. Sometimes the police will be here also. All of them will be really concerned. This time where we were called for a python, we went down and there were these two guys waiting with a long pole in front of a bush down the ATV block, and we found out that the python was hiding inside the bush, and these two guys were just waiting for the snake to go out so they can keep the snake, and most likely kill it.
So here's an undercover operation where we pretend to be buyers trying to buy tiger teeth and tiger claws.
One of ASIS's focus areas is tackling the illegal wildlife trade. In addition to launching the 24-hour wildlife crime hotline, we also established this wildlife rescue center to provide a home for these rescued animals from the illegal trade. However, it's very shocking that Singapore is one of the top 10 hubs for the illegal wildlife trade in the world. There's still a long way to go. We work closely with the enforcement authorities. We have a dedicated animal crime investigation unit. We work on tip-offs. We monitor the trade in live animals and parts. And we also conduct sting operations.
My name is Nita and I'm an education executive with ACRES. So part of my job is actually to help raise awareness about issues surrounding animal cruelty. This year we are focusing a lot more on native wildlife, rehabilitation and rescue. For Singaporeans, I think our case is very interesting because they don't know a lot of these animals exist, right? They don't know what their behavior is like or how to react. So the first instinct would be to be scared or be fearful of these animals. And then at the same time, we do talk about cruelty-free lifestyles. For example, if you're a tourist going to watch animal entertainment shows, are you actually supporting something good, or are you supporting actually the cruelty of animals? So this is just one example. Of course, when it comes to personal choices, such as even the choice of soaps, shampoos, or what you have on your plate also can make a difference to how much you have. Usually we do host visits by schools, even corporates, and anyone that wants to sign up for our visits. Today there's actually a visit from a preschool and a kindergarten, so it's an early learning center. I think that's really the right age because they're really absorbing everything around them, and how you influence them is very important. So we can influence them to be very compassionate with animals, to actually care for them, and not to use animals for anything.
What we really want people to understand that is that animals are not here to harm us, and we need to coexist because it's their home as well as our home. So it's how it should be. We should be able to live together.
ACRES's vision is to create a society which is compassionate towards all animals, and we strongly believe that all animals are sentient beings. They can feel emotions just like you and I. And our team here, we can say, is one of the very passionate team of individuals who come here not to make money, but to actually make a difference for the animals.
Okay, so these are just some news articles. So if you have ever heard of us before, it's probably in the context of rescues. People are very interested about things like snakes being rescued. And for some reason, this newspaper article betrays a certain expectation that female people shouldn't be able to be brave enough to catch a snake, something like that, which is not really true, actually. And anybody with the proper training can do that. So we do have female rescue officers as well. We have 6 focus areas in our work. What you've seen a lot of is the rescue and rehabilitation part. So we rescue and rehabilitate wild animals. We also do humane education, which is what my job is. we tackle the illegal wildlife trade. We promote coexistence between humans and wildlife, which is more important now because we want to have a city in nature and people are getting into contact with animals more often. We do community outreach and we promote cruelty-free lifestyles, which is maybe something that Advantage should do as well, given our teachings and our values. So we see ourselves as speaking up for the animals, for their interests. Now I want to talk about origin stories and how this affects our view of the relationship between humans and animals. Origin stories about where we came from, they'll make us think about questions like where did animals come from, where did we come from, how should humans treat animals. And what I want to say is that there's a diversity of views within religions, between religions. I just want to have a look at some of them. Okay, so this is kind of an Asian religion, of Hinduism, Buddhism, this kind of thing. There's this belief in life as a cycle. A cycle of death and rebirth, right? Reincarnation. So you can be reincarnated depending on your previous life into one of 6 categories of living things. Can be at the top there, I think there are gods. Then over there there's demigods, or sometimes bad gods. And here are, I forgot what that is, maybe human beings is over here. Here you have hungry ghosts, there you have animals, and at the bottom you have people in hell. The Hopavela, you see the hell images. So you can be reincarnated into one of these realms of existence. So that's the Buddhist, Hindu kind of belief. The idea of rebirth and all that. Okay, so this is what I talked about.
We ascribe infinite value to human life.
Okay, so this is a Buddhist monk. And just listen to what he says about. He doesn't really talk about Buddhism very much, but he's obviously wearing the robes and he comes from that kind of religious background. So let's listen to how it affects his attitude towards animals.
But at the same time, the value of animals is almost zero. People love animals. This is the paradox. We love dogs, but we eat pigs and wear cows. Why? It doesn't make any sense. Some we love as pets, but then the other ones we just behave towards them with incredible cruelty. People try to justify the way we treat animals. Well, animals don't feel pain, they don't have a soul, or they were created just for our consumption. That is completely clear that animals do have emotion, that they feel pain, and it's not only great apes and dogs and cats that we of course know that they have emotion and feel pain, but it has been shown that fishes, they are all the neurotransmitters for feeling pain, that they do feel pain a lot. So we have this kind of arrogance as human beings that 8 million other species, they're absolutely there just for us. They are at our disposal. Nature has given this immense power, and we blindly use this power to just abuse other animals without any clear justification. We cannot defend that ethically.
I think you can tell that.
The whole point is to barely maintain them alive in terrible conditions where they cannot turn, they cannot move, the air is terrible, they never see the sky. The goal is to maintain them alive long enough that they reach the time where to kill them. So I think this is the time to think carefully. Those are sentient beings. If we are concerned by the suffering of others and we value that aspiration not to suffer, why should we place zero value on the experience of other animals? We need to change our mentality. If we embrace all sentient beings, not only will we include animals, but we also love better in a way human beings, because the strength and the magnitude and the depth of our compassion will be vast.
Okay, so he doesn't talk much about Buddhist teachings and all that, but you can tell the values coming through, right, from his religious beliefs there. And I think that should also give us food for thought on how we present our own beliefs in, for example, vegetarianism and all that. We emphasize health and all that, but that's appealing to people's desire to be healthy. But could we not also adopt some of his reasoning? Because I think everything that is said It's more or less common sense if you think about it, right? Animals have feelings, and you look at how animals are farmed for consumption in modern factory farming is very cruel. So I think we can, even as Christians, we can agree with more or less everything that is said over there. And when you speak to a Buddhist person or whatever, this can be perhaps a bridge that you can use, something that you have in common with Buddhists. They also believe in vegetarianism, but they're coming at it more from animal welfare reason rather than for health reasons. Let's come to something closer to home, Christianity. Here you have a stained glass window from a Western church. Jesus portrayed as a European person carrying a sheep. But of course, this comes from the story of Jesus as a good shepherd. Okay, so he looks after animals in that metaphor, and we are his sheep, the sheep of his pasture. Okay, this is what I told you about just now about Genesis. So, it says God made man in his image, and then the second yellow part he tells the animals and the people, be fruitful and multiply. He tells the people, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over everything, living thing that moves on the earth. So some Christians have taken that to mean that, okay, that means it's okay for us to, we rule over the animals, we can use them and abuse them and just eat them up, just use them for whatever we want. But look at the context, it's a vegetarian context. In the very next verse it says, God tells them, behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, we shall have them for food. So God doesn't want us to eat the animals. And a couple of verses earlier, it already says that he made human beings after his likeness, in his image. And also, is God kind of a predatory kind of person, or is he a more compassionate being? So what image are we reflecting? Okay, so here we have a portrayal of the Garden of Eden, and you can see many different animals. I could censor it because I'm showing this to a school kids audience. The story of the snake in the tree giving the fruit to the woman who gives it to the man. It's interesting, the animals that you see in this painting, right? You have animals from all over the world, and the animals also not eating each other. They're kind of living together in harmony all over the floor and everything, but they are kind of living together in harmony. So this is the ideal presented in the story of the creation. And then that's one story of origin. So let's think about how that should inform our attitudes to animals. This is another popular story of origins. I looked at the Buddhist one and the Christian one. This is a kind of scientific atheistic one. Okay, so I think you know who's that, by the way. You all know?
Darwin.
Yes, Charles Darwin. Okay, here he's portrayed as a kind of monkey because this cartoon came out back when people were very skeptical about his idea that human beings evolved from the apes, so they drew him like that. A venerable orangutan, that's what the cartoon is. It's from 1886, I think during his lifetime. What about this guy? Do you know who that is? He actually came to Singapore. He's one of the co-authors of the theory of evolution. Okay, his name is Alfred Russel Wallace. Darwin is the one who's more famous because he wrote the book The Origin of Species, but Wallace actually came up with the theory of evolution at the same time as him. So they're both the co-discoverers. And the interesting thing about Wallace is that, okay, this statue is actually in Singapore. It's at the Lee Kong Chian Natural History Museum. Because he actually came to Singapore, he stayed with some missionaries at Bukit Timah in the Catholic Church, and then he went to Bukit Timah and collected hundreds of beetles and all that. And from his studies of animals in Southeast Asia, he came up with the idea of evolution. So I think you all more or less know the general outline of what evolution teaches. You know, that animals evolve from natural selection, survival of the fittest, and things like that. So how does this inform, if we believe in this, how does it inform our view of how we should behave towards others, towards other human beings as well as animals? This is a page from the Southeast Gene, one of the books I had studied in university, by Richard Dawkins, who is actually an Oxford professor, who is an atheist, and he strongly believes that there's no such thing as God, he believes in evolution. So just want to read part of his ideas from this book. Much as we might wish to believe otherwise, universal love and welfare of the species as a whole are concepts that simply do not make evolutionary sense. This brings me to the first point I want to make about what this book is not. I am not advocating a morality based on evolution. I'm saying how things have evolved. I'm not saying how we humans morally ought to behave. I stress this because I know I am in danger of being misunderstood by those people or too numerous, who cannot distinguish a statement of belief in what is the case from an advocacy of what ought to be the case. Okay, so this is from the book The Selfish Gene, where he's arguing that because of the way evolution works, our genes program us to behave in selfish ways. Okay, so it's natural for us to behave selfishly, not just us, but all living things. Let me continue. My own feeling is that a human society based simply on the gene's law of universal ruthless selfishness would be a very nasty society in which to live. But unfortunately, however much we may deplore something, it does not stop it from being true. This book is mainly intended to be interesting, but if you would extract a moral from it, read it as a warning. Be warned that if you wish, as I do, to build a society in which individuals cooperate generously and unselfishly towards a common good, we can expect little help from our biological nature. Let us try to teach generosity and altruism because we are born selfish. Let us understand what our selfish genes are up to, because we may then at least have the chance to upset their designs, something that no other species has ever aspired to. And then he goes on to talk about nature versus nurture and all that. So you can see that as an atheist, as a scientific atheist, he believes that because of the way evolution works, because it's survival of the fittest, the fittest will be those that behave the most selfishly. To behave selfishly means to behave in ways that benefit your own chances of survival more than that of others. Therefore, you have a better chance of passing your genes on to the next generation because you live longer. And therefore, the genes that you pass on will be those genes that have somehow affected your behavior in ways that give you an advantage over other people or other living things. So the evolutionists' belief is that if the proportion of our behavior that comes from our genes, we should expect that to be selfish. We should expect our genes to program us to behave in selfish ways. And he's saying this is not a good thing. He doesn't want to live in a society where everybody behaves selfishly, but he's saying that that is what our human nature, what we should expect our human nature to predispose us towards doing. Okay, which again, if you're speaking to an evolutionist, an atheist, this is common ground that we can have. How is this similar to our beliefs in human nature? Anybody know? Is this at all similar to some of our beliefs about sinful, right? Human nature is sinful. As a result of the fall, we tend towards sin. We tend towards selfishness. And then you can also ask them, okay, if you want to build a society where people are not selfish, why do you want that? What makes you want to live in such a society? Or why don't you want to live in a society where the strongest survive? Then you can be the strongest and you can beat everybody else and win everybody and have everything. Why don't you want to live in such a society? Where do these values come from? I think that if you look deep down, these values come from Christianity. Well, he's actually an Englishman, and England was a Christian country. So they have some Christian values still. Most of the people there are not Christians anymore, but their culture is still deeply influenced by Christian ideas. The idea that we should protect the weak, we should stand up for the poor and the downtrodden, things like this. These are not evolutionary ideas, these are Christian ideas. The idea that all people of all races should be treated equally. These do not come from evolution, these are Christian ideas. So it is because of Christian morality that he wants, even though he's an atheist, he's still affected by this milieu of Christian values in his society. And again, this is a cartoon kind of mocking, not so much evolution, but the way we behave. So, evolutionists believe that life evolved in a soup, and then fish became amphibians, then became reptiles, mammals, and then apes became people, and then people throw rubbish in the sea. So it's not mocking evolution, it's mocking our behavior now. But again, even as Christians, we also do not agree that this is how we should behave. Right? We shouldn't be dirty and litter and spoil the environment. So we can have common ground with people of other beliefs, with Buddhists, with other Christians, with evolutionists, with atheists. So when we speak to different people, let's try to find common ground first to build bridges, and then we can talk about where our beliefs are different. Okay, now why should we be kind to animals? Okay, the first selfish reason is that we need animals ourselves. Okay, we need animals because they're part of our ecosystem. As we ourselves as animals, we need food, we need water, we need shelter, we need a comfortable climate. All of these things are provided by the ecosystem. And all of these things depend on plants and animals. For this, for example, climate change, we need the help of plants and animals to help solve this problem that we have caused. Pollination, most of our food, especially us as people who eat more plants, most of our food is actually pollinated by things like bees and all that. So we need animals to pollinate the flowers. You can see pictures from parts of the world where they kill off the insects, or people climbing the trees on ladders with paintbrushes, brushing the pollen from one flower to another. They have to do the work of the bees because they killed off the bees. So without insects, we will actually starve. And most of our food is actually pollinated by insects. So we need animals for our own food, even if we don't eat the animals themselves. We also seed dispersal, keep the plants alive that we eat. We need animal poo, which is not something that we like very much. It seems dirty, but it's actually food for the plants. It's how nature recycles nutrients back to the soil to make the plants grow so that we eat the plants. And we need worms in the soil to aerate the soil so the plants can grow. For example, this is a picture from Stomp of a bat eating bananas at Fair Price in Jurong East. And this is seen as a problem. But actually, if you want to have the bananas, you need to have the bats. Without bats, you cannot have bananas. So if you want to eat bananas, you need to have bats like this. The reason is that the bananas that you see growing here, these are seedless bananas. They cannot reproduce by themselves. They cannot spread their seeds. They've been bred to be seedless so that when you eat them, you don't break your teeth on the seeds. But wild bananas are full of black seeds like you see over there. You do find wild bananas also, they grow about this big and they're full of very big black seeds. And the wild bananas are pollinated by bats, and the seeds are spread by bats. And if you want to have the seedless bananas like this, you need the wild bananas because wild bananas, because they have seeds, they reproduce sexually. That means they get genes from two different trees to make these seeds grow. And because of that, they have genetic variety. The seedless bananas, they're all the same. In Singapore, we have many different varieties, but the commercial varieties like Cavendish, that are found in big plantations, they're all the same. So one fungus, one virus can wipe out the entire banana crop. And we have no more bananas to eat because they're seedless and they have no resistance to these diseases. But the wild bananas, because they have genetic variety, some of them have the genes that make them resistant to fungi and viruses. So it has happened a few times in the past where the entire banana crop has been wiped out. And then the scientists have to go back to the wild bananas and breed new edible varieties, seedless ones that are resistant to disease. So we need the bats to keep them alive. The animal manure, this is a graph from the phosphate industry. Phosphate is a very important fertilizer. Most of our food nowadays is grown with very intensive farming methods that rely on artificial fertilizers, and phosphate is one of the most important ones. And it's actually mined from rocks. Singapore used to have this island called Christmas Island, right? That was given to Australia by the British before we gained independence. And then they actually mined phosphate there. But the phosphate industry says that the peak phosphate is going to be around 2040. After that, it's going to decrease based on the discovered deposits of rock phosphate. So once it starts decreasing, right, we're going to have a problem because the farmers won't have so much fertilizer anymore. So we may need to go back to traditional farming methods that rely on organic fertilizer like animal manure to fertilize the plants so that we can produce enough food to feed our huge global human population. And we need even things like worms in the soil, which don't seem very, they're not like furry animals that people find very cute, but they're very important because they also contribute to the health of the plants. And we can also harm worms by throwing plastics around, or when the plastics break into powder in the soil, they actually poison the worms, they make them sick. So let's keep the soil clean. Another ecosystem service is maintaining a balance. For example, we don't like being bitten by mosquitoes, and as you know, mosquitoes breed in water. So when the British came to Singapore and developed a place, they built urban drains. Urban drains are very hot. They're not in the forest like our forest streams, so our native forest fish cannot survive in them. So there's a problem of no fish in the drains, and then the mosquitoes breed a lot, and then people started getting malaria. So they brought in guppies from Trinidad. So guppies are actually introduced fish. The British put them in the drains to eat the mosquito larvae, and it worked. So they made a problem, and then they solved the problem by bringing in the fish from another part of the British Empire to eat the mosquitoes, because the drains are not suitable for our native forest fish. But then people in Singapore some anglers like to catch this fish called a peacock bass, which is a South American fish. So they bought from the aquarium and throw in the reservoir, and then they ate up all the small fish. And people started getting a plague of flies because the small fish that ate the insect larvae were eaten up by this fish. This happened a few years ago. Then the PUB bought a lot of guppies from the aquarium shop and threw in the reservoir. And then all these guppies went into the mouth of the peacock bass, so it didn't really help. And then they fumigated with fogging and all that, but the residents had given up because it didn't seem to work. But after a while, the problem went away. Okay, the plague of flies, it's one of those Egyptian plagues, it kind of disappeared. Nobody really knows what caused it. Okay, but around that time, otters started appearing at Pandan Reservoir.
Yes.
Okay, and my own theory, I have no proof for this, but my own theory is that otters came. The otters don't eat the small fish that eat the insect larvae, they eat big fish. Okay, so they were chasing the peacock bass, they ate some of them, and the rest of them were running away from the otters, so the small fish population had a chance to recover and eat up the insect larvae. That's my own theory, I don't know if it's true. Okay, but it shows you an example of how we depend on animals to provide ecosystem services, like provide us with food, with water, with absence of plagues or midges. If you're interested, you can watch a video on how whales change the climate, but I'll skip that for now. Okay, so that's the selfish reasons for being kind to animals. The more important reason that at ACRES we promote is that animals are sentient beings, meaning that they have feelings. They have senses, they have feelings. And then there's this thing called the golden rule. Okay, it's a moral principle found in all the major religions, which in the Christian phrasing of it is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, to quote Jesus. But you'll also find it in other religions, in different forms. So how do we know animals have feelings? From the way that they behave, from their body language. For example, you can see the cat is kind of angry, he's hissing at another cat. The dog is happy to meet the owner. The mummy elephant is very happy to be with the baby elephant, that's why they're hugging. This pangolin is feeling defensive. This cobra also, that's why it's trying to make itself look bigger. And this poor parrot is self-harming, he's plucked out the feathers on his back because he's very lonely and very bored in a cage. So from their behavior, you can guess that they have feelings like us. And the monkey is tired, so it's yawning. By the way, dogs can catch yawns from humans. So people with pet dogs, when they yawn, the dog sees them yawning, the dog also yawn. It shows that dogs have a certain level of empathy with us. They can sense how we are feeling. The mummy tiger, the baby tiger are closing their eyes because they are happy. That shows they're happy. And domestic cats also do the same thing when they're happy. So their body language gives you an idea of how they feel. This is a video from a Vancouver aquarium of sea otters, not the kind of otters you find here. Okay, so they are the ones who sleep floating on the water. And when you look at what they do, okay, which gives you some insight into their feelings. Okay, there's a big otter and a small otter, they're floating there. And then they hold hands. It's all so cute, they're holding hands. Okay, but why do you think they're holding hands?
So that they will drink together.
Yeah, so they want to, but it shows that they want to be together, right? That's why they're holding hands. They don't want to drift away. So again, this shows you that they are social animals, and maybe it's a parent and a kid, I'm not sure. But they want to be together. It gives you some insight into how they want to be, their desires, okay, and their inner mental life. This is another interesting one. This is an experiment about capuchin monkeys to see whether they have the concept of fairness. Okay, so in this experiment, they've been trained to sell stones to the human experimenters, and they're paid with fruit. So at first they're both paid with cucumber, and they're willing to sell stones for cucumber. But later the monkey on the left is paid with grapes instead. When grapes are sweeter, right? So it's not fair. Why is it the other one is still getting paid with cucumber while the other one is getting grapes for the same work? So it's to see whether they care about equal pay for equal work. Okay, let's see from their body language whether you can tell that.
France began the fairness test with the capuchin monkey.
So.
These small, clever animals are kept in large enclosures, but for the short duration of the test, they're brought into a lab. Each monkey carries out a simple task, and when both get a reward of a cucumber, everyone's happy. But watch what happens when the one on the right receives a grape instead.
Grapes are so much better than cucumber. In March, I was upset by the fact that the other one was getting a grape. waste, sometimes waits till the other one also gets equipped. So that gets very close to the human sense of fairness.
So the one that's getting the better reward refuses to take the reward until the other animal is being similarly rewarded at the distance.
Yeah, that's in chimpanzees. That has never been found in another animal, but the chimpanzee goes much further. They care about reward division even if they're on the better scale.
I think those chimpanzees are better than some humans that we know, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember, but some years back, you remember the bus driver strike?
Okay.
You remember what that was about, right? There was I can't remember, was it Trans Island or SMRT? They had three categories of bus drivers. There's Singapore citizen bus drivers, there Malaysian bus drivers, and there Chinese bus drivers.
Yes.
And the Singaporeans were paid a normal bus driver's pay. The Malaysians were paid less than the Singaporeans. And then the Chinese were paid very much less than the Malaysians. So they're all doing the same job, they're all driving the bus. Why is it the Singaporeans are getting paid so much, the Malaysians are getting paid less, and then the Chinese are getting paid right at the bottom? So the Chinese bus drivers went on strike. Okay? But at that time, the Singaporean bus drivers, I don't remember them protesting, right? Saying, why is it you're not paying my colleagues the same as me? So, are the chimpanzees better than some of us? But anyway, that shows you that animals not only have feelings, but some of them even have concepts of like moral or ethical concepts, like the concept of fairness that's shown by social animals like monkeys and chimpanzees. Now I'll just skip some slides. It's more about how animals have feelings. Some of them even like music. Dog playing the piano and singing. For time I'll just skip it, but you can go and search on YouTube. Again, that's the golden rule, and Jesus said it, but it's also found in other religions. And sometimes it's given positively, like in the Christian sense, where you do unto others as you would have them to do unto you. Other times it's given in a negative sense, like the Buddhist one, for example. Treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. That means don't do to other people what you don't like people to do to you. But either way, it's the sense of treating others, exercising empathy, and treating people the way you want to be treated. So I think we should extend this to not just to other human beings, but also to other sentient beings, which means animals. Okay, maybe they're not as clever as us, but they also have feelings like us. So let's try again, especially as Christians who believe we are created in the image of God, and God is a kind God, a loving God. Let's show God's love and God's kindness to all living things, or all sentient beings at least, including animals. Okay, so what can we do? What are some practical steps that we can take to reduce cruelty or be more animal friendly? These are just some ideas, there are more. Okay, food, obviously eat less animals. Products like cosmetics, don't buy those that are tested on animals. Fashion, okay, you don't have to, we're not Adam and Eve, you don't have to wear animal skin anymore, there's other things you can wear. Tourism, you remember the story of Ramba the chimpanzee at the zoo was treated badly for the sake of tourism. Let's not give our tourist dollars to people who are unkind to animals. If you have to keep a pet, adopt rather than buy from a puppy mill or kitten mill. Don't litter, keep the environment clean because litter harms animals. Don't use glue traps or watch animal abuse videos. In shark's fin soup, I don't have to say much about that. Okay, so besides the health reasons for vegetarianism, there's also ecological reasons. That shows you the amount of land needed by one vegetarian per year to grow the food. This is how much land a meat eater needs, because you don't need to grow the meat, but you also need to grow the food to feed the animals. Okay, so you need to grow the soybeans and the corn to feed the cows, the pigs and the chickens. So you need to do a lot more deforestation in the Amazon, for example, where huge areas of forest are cut down to grow beef cattle and soybeans to feed pigs and chickens and other animals, not to feed humans. So if everyone was vegetarian, we would need a lot less farmland and a lot more could be left for wildlife habitats. Okay, this is another graphic showing you the same information. 2 football fields can feed 1 person a year if they are vegetarian. 2 football fields can feed 1 person a year on a standard American diet, which is high in animal products. 2 football fields can feed 14 people per year if they're all vegetarians, or they all eat plant-based diet. So with our growing human population, we should eat less animals and more plant foods. This is purely from ecological land use perspective, but there's also, of course, animal welfare concerns. If you eat eggs, The cheapest way to mass produce eggs is in battery farms where chickens are kept in very overcrowded conditions. They suffer a lot. Each of them have hardly enough space to even turn around. All they do is eat and lay eggs, and sometimes they even have to blunt their beaks unless they peck each other, and you can see that they're in very poor condition because so that's why it's cruel to eat eggs, to eat eggs that have been farmed this way, because that's how the eggs are produced. Okay? Each of the chickens only has enough space, same amount of space as an A4 sheet of paper, which is just enough space to fit the chicken. Okay, so the kinder alternative, if you must eat eggs, is to buy free-range eggs, but they're very expensive. Okay? This is NTUC's website. These are, because they're air-flown from places like Australia and New Zealand, cost like $12. There's a cheaper alternative, which is cage-free eggs. Cage-free eggs are kind of a halfway house. They're not free-range, but the chickens are not kept in cages. They're kept in a big building indoors. Okay, so this is the advertisement from the brand that NTUC sells. That's how the chickens are farmed on the field. So it's more like natural chickens, how you imagine it if you watch cartoons about farms and all that. This is cage-free. This is how cage-free chickens are farmed. They are farmed indoors. It's still very crowded. They still don't get to see the sky. They don't get to see the grass. But at least they're not so crowded. They can move around a bit. It's not as cruel as battery farms. So minimally, I would say choose cage-free eggs. It's less cruel than battery farm eggs if you must eat eggs. But then again, it's not necessary to eat eggs, right? You don't need it. Okay, cosmetics. You all know that cosmetics contain a lot of chemicals. These chemicals are often tested on animals like rabbits and white rats. So if you don't want this, you can look for cosmetics that have these kind of logos that show that they are not tested on animals. That reduces the cruelty to animals in the cosmetics industry. Then leather. God killed animals and took their skin to clothe Adam and Eve when they found out that they were naked. But now we have other materials. We don't have to do what they did last time. Okay, so it's not necessary to use snake skin, crocodile skin, or cow skin. There's other materials that actually are more durable, especially in our tropical climate. You have leather things that tend to grow fungus because they're actually made of biodegradable materials. And if you get them made up of vinyl or some synthetic material, they last a lot longer. And they're cheaper as well. So it's not necessary to wear animal skins. Also things like this, things made from fur or turtle shells. Again, tourism, it's better if you want to spend tourist money, pay someone to take you out to see the dolphins in the sea rather than go and watch them in an aquarium where they are removed from their family in the wild and kept in a very small enclosure. Again, elephants don't naturally like people sitting on them. The mahout has to poke them with a sharp stick to train them. So instead of spending your tourist dollars on that kind of attraction, pay someone, a guide or someone to take you out to see the wildlife in their natural habitat. That also encourages the people to look after their local wildlife habitats, so everybody wins. Also, don't watch this kind of, this is not natural animal behavior. Better to go and see animals doing what they naturally do in the wild. Same with this, selfies. You can go to Thailand and Laos and take selfies with tigers, baby tigers, and even adult tigers. But again, babies should be with their parents. They shouldn't be with tourists. And adult tigers, if you take photos with them, they usually have drugged the tigers, so it's not kind to them. Even local animals, let's respect their personal space. Let's not go and do things like this, we might frighten them. And if this is NPAS telling people, if you want to look at marine life, don't try not to step on them. And if you go fishing, throw away your fishing gear. Otherwise, this is from ACRES. We're doing an operation on, I think, a monitor lizard that's got caught on a fish hook. Okay, puppy and kitten meals. Okay. So adopt, you can adopt from SPC and all that. So again, litter, it shows you the harm that litter does to animals. The whale ate all this plastic. Okay, and you can see that the albatross chick is getting full of plastic, and after it dies, you can see all the bottle caps inside. So I don't know if it's my imagination, but I find that now Singapore is more dirty than it used to be. When I was younger, I don't remember so much plastic in the environment. Now there's a lot of plastic, and eventually it ends up being eaten by animals, and this happens. So let's teach our kids and all that to throw things in the bin, not on the floor. And let's not use glue traps. Glue traps are used to catch pests like rats and lizards and flies, but they're very cruel to those animals. And in addition to that, they also catch wild animals like this snake or this civet cat that's stuck on a glue trap. See, the myna got caught and then the python got caught on the glue trap. That's an owl after we rescued it. It cannot fly because the feathers are all spoiled by the glue. You can see it catches birds. This is probably a couple, they mate for life and then they try to help his partner and got stuck also. So almost every day we have to rescue animals from glue traps. So please tell your family and friends, don't buy glue traps. They're very wicked and cruel things. Just find some other way to deal with the pest problem. And then social media, if you go on YouTube and Instagram, you can see a lot of animal videos. Okay? And these animal videos are an industry. Okay? Like this is actually a fake rescue video. Okay? They caught this snake, they sewed its mouth up with a needle and a thread. They caught a puppy dog, they wrapped the snake around the dog and pretend to rescue it. Okay? It's not a real rescue video. Then it's got a cameraman to film, and then the hero arrives on a motorbike. And then to make it more dramatic, he has to disturb the snake, make it react more. So those are fake rescue videos. There's also the cute baby monkey videos where they catch baby monkeys, remove them from their parents, and make them act like human beings, which is not. It may look very comical, but it's not kind to them. You know? This is not what baby animals should be doing. They should be being looked after by their mothers. So let's not watch these kind of videos. Okay, you see this video, what you do is you click the 3 dots icon, you pull down, you report it as violence. The subcategory is animal abuse. Okay, TikTok is very good. You report to TikTok, they'll take it down usually within the same day. But sadly, Meta, Facebook, Instagram is not so good at this. But we're hoping that if enough people keep reporting it, they will take down these videos that are actually abusing animals. Okay, so I'll skip the Steve Cuts video, but this is just a video imagining what it would be like if animals treated humans the way we treat them. Okay, but I think I'll stop there because I've been going on a long time already. Any questions? By the way, this is our hotline number. It's good to store it in your phone so that if you ever come across a wild animal that needs help, maybe is injured or went inside your house or somebody is abusing an animal. Okay, so we rescue only wild animals, but in terms of other welfare issues like animal abuse and all that, we've also helped to investigate. So do store this in your phone because if you call this hotline, they will ask you to take a photo of the animal and WhatsApp to them so that you can assess the situation. So this is the ACRES rescue hotline. It used to be 24 hours, but we are short of staff, so now it only operates from 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. And usually, even after it ends at 1 a.m., our staff are still coping with a backlog of cases, so they don't get much sleep. So that kind of wraps up my presentation on what ACRES is about and some animal welfare issues. Do you have any questions?
Okay.
Sure.
I have one question. Actually, it's regarding my daughter. She picked up a kitten when she was in secondary school. And then right to her university days, she still treasures a cat, when the kitten become cat. And when she moved to Norway, then to Germany, then to her, the cat is moved from one place to another. Her love for this cat caused concern because she spent thousands of dollars, even quarantine and all that. So it becomes a problem in the family. So we asked her to part with the cat. It's quite cruel on her part. So what is your comments on this?
Okay.
Because you see, she has a study to do, and even now she's a lawyer, a maritime lawyer, so she moves all over the place. And every time the cat, she will move from one country to another. It becomes our concern. Then for us, every time we tell her, if the cat part with the cat, things like that, also difficult for us. So what is your comment only?
I guess my view on that would be, coming from an animals as sentient beings perspective, is that if you take on a pet, it's a responsibility. It's a bit like having a child. You know, it's like you're responsible for the welfare of the animal that you look after. This is something that sometimes people don't really think about before they get a pet. They sometimes get it on a whim, or because it's a year of a rabbit, they buy a rabbit, or things like that, which are not very good reasons for getting a pet. But I guess it's a responsibility, and animals like cats get very attached to their owners. So I would think that the right thing to do would be for her to still look after it as she has done. Obviously, if you travel around, it's costly. Same if you have a child, it's costly to bring the child with you to other countries. But I guess that's probably the right thing to do. You know, you don't let other people take up the burden. You look after the animal yourself. And that, I think that's probably, from an animal welfare and kindness animals point of view, I think that's probably the right thing to do, to look after an animal if you take it on. You see many cases of people abandoning animals because they maybe didn't get it for the right reasons. Like you yourselves had a rabbit that was thrown at a rubbish chute, a white color rabbit. It was thrown in a cage, actually at the rubbish chute, and I think one of our parents, was it Dad or you? Dad, my father brought it back. He also brought back a dog that someone threw in the train. So there are people who treat pets like toys. You can buy it, the money you throw it away. But it's not kind to them. A lot of these animals don't survive very well in the wild because they're not wild animals. Like for example, silky chickens. Now you go around sometimes you see abandoned silky chickens. The silky chickens are the ones that they're kind of mutant chickens. You know, they don't have proper feathers. Their feathers are like fur, and often there's feathers over their eyes. And people buy them because they look kind of cute. But you think, can this chicken survive in the wild? You can't see properly, you can't fly. No, wild chickens can actually fly. They fly into the trees at night to roost. So you can't fly, you can't see properly. It's probably not going to live very long in the wild. So a lot of these pet animals, they've been bred to have traits that make them not very survivable in the wild. And we're also against people breeding such animals. You know, like the flat-faced dogs, like pugs and all that. You ever seen a pug? You can actually hear because it's like going. It's struggling to breathe all the time because its face is so deformed. So a lot of vets actually say it's actually cruel to breed animals with such characteristics. Or the very small breeds of dog, or teacup poodles and all that. The way they breed them is they take the runt of the litter, the smallest pup, and then they breed it with the other smallest pup. So they breed them smaller and smaller. But the runt often has a lot of health problems. It often has a lot of genetic defects and all that. So you're breeding animals that have genetic defects with other animals that already have genetic defects. These things accumulate. So you get all these small dogs, they tend to have very short lives, and they tend to have a lot of health problems because they have a lot of recessive genes that are being expressed and all that. So even when we keep pets, let's try to be kind. Let's not breed those animals to have characteristics that may look cute to us, but are very bad for their health. And they're almost like members of our family, you know, especially social animals like cats and dogs. They get very attached to us. If you abandon them, they feel like a child that's been abandoned. So I would argue that keeping a pet is a responsibility. So as far as possible, you should try to take good care of them. You know, it's like having a child. You don't just throw away your child when it becomes inconvenient. But that's my take on this.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
So if we see like a king cobra or something in the HDB, do we call NParks or call acres?
Okay, so
where does it draw the line?
You can call either NParks or acres in such cases. If you call acres, the phone is actually manned by the rescue officers, so they can advise you what to do. What they will ask you to do is take a photo of the animal and of its surroundings, so they can assess what kind of animal it is it injured, what kind of tools they need to bring. If you call NParks, it's something like a call center. So the people who pick up your call may not know what to do, but they will take down the information and pass it on to their contractor. So NParks has certain contractors that help them to go and catch snakes and things like that. So you can call both, I would say. You try either one. But certain animals, right, if you want to help pest animals, pests are things like mynas, pigeons, crows, chickens, wild pigs, things that NParks considers a pest animal. Don't call NParks, they'll kill it. If you want to help it, call acres. Okay, if we can, we will help it. We can't always help it. Like, I think things like wild boar, so we can't rescue because if you rescue it, there's nothing we can do. NParks doesn't want us to release it, and we don't have the space to keep it. So even if you rescue it, most of the time they die because wild boar are very sensitive animals. They're like rabbits. You catch a wild rabbit, you can't keep it as a pet because it will die of fright. The same with wild boar and deer. They're prey animals. They're very nervous, and we've rescued them before. They usually don't survive. So we can't always save every animal, but we'll try our best. But we do save pigeons, crows, and mynas because although they're considered pests by the authorities, we care about animal welfare, so we will treat them if we can, and then we will release them at our premises and charge them. But if you see dogs and cats, don't call us because we'll ask you to call SPCA. Because there's already other people doing that. And we only have one rescue van. It's already very busy, so we just concentrate on wild animals. Yes.
Where do you release the snakes?
Okay, back in when we first started, we used to release them in a suitable habitat as close to where we found them as possible. But now NParks is very scared of the public's reaction to people releasing venomous snakes. So for venomous snakes, we have to give it to the zoo. The zoo will then arrange with NParks to release it in a nature reserve, probably in the central catchment or Sungai Buloh or places like that. So they release venomous snakes far away from human habitations. Actually, people are scared of venomous snakes, but to be honest, you don't have to be scared of venomous snakes because they're actually harmless as long as you leave them alone. They only bite people in self-defense. So as long as you don't try to go and touch it or try to kill it or something, it will not bite you, you will not get bitten. One day I was walking, Thompson Road, where pedestrian road, Thompson Road, near there was a, near the Polo Club, near the police academy.
Okay.
I was walking on Thompson Road there one day in the evening, and I looked down and beside me there was a black spitting cobra on the pavement. Near there's a walk kindergarten right on the house on the hill, Eaton House, I think it's supposed to. So I look at the cobra looked at me. What do you think happened next? Yeah, the cobra ran away. It was so close, it could have bitten me if it wanted to. It could have spat poison at me if it wanted to, spitting cobra. But the first question is actually to run away and hide. If they cannot run away, then they'll react and hiss at you, and if you keep disturbing or spit at you, if the poison gets in your eyes, it makes it very painful, it can blind you. That's so that they can escape. So they have no interest in fighting us or fighting with us because they will lose. It's just a defensive thing. I mean, again, let's use our empathy. Imagine one day you're just minding your own business, then some stranger come and start to hit you or start to chase you. What will you do? It's fight or flight, right? Either you run away, you cannot run away, you fight back. It's the same with all animals, including snakes. If you leave it alone, they also leave you alone. They don't want to fight with you. But if you go and disturb them, you threaten them, they feel they have to defend themselves. That's why people get bitten. So people get bitten when they're trying to catch the snake. That's why our rescue officers need to be very well trained. Or when they're trying to kill the snake, or they're trying to pet the snake, or do something silly with the snake. That's when they get bitten. It's the same with us, right? If some stranger comes and starts to touch you, what will you do, right? You either run away or you fight back. So let's just remember that animals have feelings, and it can prevent a lot of. Another misunderstanding is baby animals. People see baby otter looks very cute, you go and pet the otter, and then they get bitten by the parents. Because the parents are very protective. Same with monkeys and wild boars. So you see baby animals, don't go near, stay further away because the parents are very protective. So just remember animals have feelings and try to use some empathy with deal with them. So it will prevent a lot of.
So what do we do with it? The day at her place, I suddenly stepped, I thought it was ropes, but about 3 meter long black color. No, it's not python, it's a cobra. I stepped a few times, then I realized it was a snake. We didn't know because we didn't see, right? We were just talking like that, and then stepped over it. Then I ran away, then she was just behind, then they stood up about 2 hours. The face to face. Yeah. Because only cobra can go up that high.
Only king cobra is that big?
Yes, it's about 3 meters long, it's very big, very huge.
It's probably cobra, right? So probably a king cobra.
Yeah, probably king cobra. So,
okay, the other time when people get bitten by snakes is an accident. They don't see them, they step on it.
Yeah, I didn't see. I actually tripped over it and then it fell.
So one thing you should teach people when you bring them up to outdoor areas is just watch where you step.
No, but it was not on the outdoor, it was on the pavement.
Yeah, so again, we need to watch where we're going. Don't walk around. Some people walk around looking at the phone, some people just don't. We're very used as Singaporeans to have very flat, straight pavements, so we don't look.
We don't hardly see where we walk.
But we need to have a bit more situational awareness. I mean, it may not be a snake, maybe there's a crack in the pavement, might trip over and fall. So let's just be more aware of our surroundings. So that's what I would say. But also, if you do things like, if you go walking or jogging at night, bring a torchlight so you can see what's on the floor. Okay, so you know, like, not just snakes, you might step on a toad or step on some dog shit or something. So just be more aware of our surroundings to avoid accidents like that. Yes.
But rats are a bit pests.
So glue traps are very cruel. because the animal gets stuck there until it dies of thirst, it dies of stress. It's a very cruel, even to kill a rat, okay, you don't want a rat. So, right now, officially ACRES doesn't really have any real alternative to it except advising people to keep food away from rats, so keep all your food in rat-proof containers and all that. What I would personally say, this is what ACRES advice, this is my own, what I would personally do is get a cage trap. You can go to Mr. DIY. There's many branches around. They sell those wire cage traps, where you put a bait and you can catch the animal alive, and then it's illegal to release them, but I will probably go and release it somewhere far away from my house, although that's against the law. That's what I would do. But I can't advise you to do that because I can't advise you to break the law.
My mother would advise pour water and kill it.
That's what your dad.
Boiling water.
Oh, that's very cruel, right? How do you like to be poured in boiling water?
Otherwise you're going to drown it, otherwise you're going to squash it on.
That's what our neighbor advised, but your dad.
So I guess if you must kill it. You must kill it.
My mother's time they will drown the rat in the kitchen.
I guess a less cruel way to drown it, just fill a bucket of water, drown it. It's still not very kind, it's not pleasant to drown, but it's less cruel than boiling it alive. So, but what I would do is just go and release it in a forested area or something far away from my house. I don't know whether it will survive, but at least I haven't directly killed it.
So what my neighbor did was rat. A person who tried to bring rat. It's a fight.
Oh, my mom's
and then what happened was one of them ran into my room. Wow, then I was so scared because my whole pictures was like ransacked. And then what I told my neighbor, how now? Then he said, no. So what he did was he built a box. Then he put a hole. He put some food inside. Then the rat went inside.
But cannot come out.
But cannot come out. Then what I did was I said, it's inside already. He said, yeah, I know it's inside. I just take the box and said, no. Okay, fine. Then he went, don't know where lah. He said, don't care what I do lah. I said, I don't kill it. I said, no. So he brought it to somewhere else to release. That's what he did lah. But because I have the animal nature loving thing.
That's what I would do lah, but now there's a lot of rules. It's actually illegal to release.
Release them. He said don't ask him when
That's why he said
so I can't advise you to do that because I can't tell you to break the law, but that's I would think that's the kind of thing to do.
Away from the house, you give the problem to somebody else. It could be the other house problem.
I don't put it near people's houses, I put it in a place away from houses.
Alright, in the nature somewhere.
And again, it may not survive, might get eaten by a snake or something, but I think it's less cruel than pouring boiling water or something like that. I think right now, there isn't really any official advice on how to kill a rat humanely from, in past they will say use like carbon dioxide and all that, but who has the facility to build a gas chamber, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think that's actually equivalent to drowning it. I think using carbon dioxide and drowning it feels about the same. Because the thing that controls our breathing rate is not lack of oxygen, but it's actually carbon dioxide. So when people who go in the water, then they drown because they can't hold their breath, right? The thing that forces them to breathe is not the lack of oxygen, it's actually the buildup of carbon dioxide in their blood. So I think using carbon dioxide to kill animals is actually not very humane. If you want to gas them, use nitrogen to displace the oxygen. When you breathe in nitrogen, you don't feel any different, but you pass out from lack of oxygen. Go unconscious and then you die. So that will be less cruel than using carbon dioxide, but the industry is to use carbon dioxide because it's more easily available.
Okay, thank you very much, man. I think we got, there's only one comment. Wow. It's like, I thought it was like 5-10 minutes talk, right? They suddenly give us one whole thesis on all the history, which we really appreciate. I think one day we will invite you back for part 2.
Yeah, part 2 or there's other topics to do with that.
Yeah, there's a lot that I think we won't do on our own. Yeah, we need people to like bring us through. Yeah.
Part 2 can be about.
So anytime you come back, just prepare for part 2. Yeah. Thank you so much. I think I never understood ACRES in such a comprehensive way. And I thought when you shared with us this, it was actually a lot of actually it's called evangelism. The way you share all your materials. And I became a vegetarian. Beginning it started with first 11, May 14. After that it was first Corinthians 10, verse 21, you know. And after that I went down to eating diet. Right? But I think the last decision that I became a vegetarian was because I saw animals dying in the market. That was like, okay, I don't want to do this. So I think like my daughter also, she always go and said this animal rights. And she has a golden retriever. And you know, for them, for young people, she said one thing to me: a dog can do no wrong. Yeah, a dog can do no wrong. Then I said, oh, this is a very hard challenge for me to find a boyfriend that can do no wrong. And I think animals has a way to reach the children as well. And so I really thank you for all your gems that you shared with us. And yeah, we need people like you and Betty's mom to go out and advocate like that.
Yep.
Yeah, seriously, I think it was really timely that you came back and visit us and keep sharing this. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This place reminds me a bit of my workplace because we have a rule at my workplace where all the food consumed on the premises must be vegetarian.
Oh, I see.
Most of the staff actually are not vegetarian themselves, but the rule is when you're at work, you can only eat vegetarian food.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you all of you also for listening.